I'm really excited to share a few tools for fluency I use to get better at German. After a while, I find that textbooks and lessons and classes and grammar and vocabulary lists, they all get a bit boring and demotivating. And so these are 7 ways that I've found to stay motivated and to incorporate listening and speaking German into my daily life. The first thing I do is that I wake up with the radio in German. This means that in the morning I automatically wake up listening to the German language, and I listen to the news in German, the weather forecast in German, sometimes I even hear some German speaking music, and this kind of allows me to passively listen to German first thing in the morning. It also allows me to listen to programs I wouldn't necessarily seek out for myself, because that's the beauty of radio. It also allows me to listen to the radio without it being an effort, in the sense that I don't have to sit down and give myself the task of listening to the radio or listening to a podcast. It's kind of automatically happening the first thing in the morning. The second thing I found to be useful is that I exercise in German. So I do a lot of yoga. One person who's been super amazing to discover this year has been Maddie Morrison, and her yoga videos are really amazing. And so I've learned some really useful vocab through her videos to be able to describe my body parts, which, you know, it's useful when you go to the doctor or something like that. Again, it doesn't feel like homework because I'm listening to something that I would be doing anyway. It's kind of a two-pronged activity where I'm motivated to learn German through exercising. I'm motivated to exercise through learning German. It's a kind of passive listening where I'm focusing so much on what I have to do, the exercises I have to do, the positions I have to transition in, that at one point I stop realizing that I'm listening to German, and it kind of just becomes natural to take in whatever information is coming. You know, it's amazing that now I know that Fußgelenk means ankle. I'm just super happy about that. I've also had a language exchange for a few months, and this is a great opportunity for speaking with someone who has a forgiving ear. Speaking to a native speaker who is also trying to learn another language is just basically 2 people wanting to discover another language, another culture, and working as a team together to teach each other those languages. There's something very simply beautiful about that. This concept of exchange means that there's really an equal footing, and you're really speaking to someone who is going to correct your mistakes if you want them to, or not correct them, who is going to teach you some slang and some really useful vocabulary as well. One really great moment was when I taught Mener en bateau to my language partner in French, and then the next week she actually used that expression as she was describing something to me, and that felt so satisfying. And so watching each other's progress and helping each other through this great, fantastic, fun journey is a really great way to know the language a bit better through a more relaxed and intimate experience than in class or with textbooks. I've also started a book club with some language learning friends. It's really fantastic because we basically choose a book and then read it together. We meet every 2 weeks and we assign ourselves some chapters to read, and then each person has to summarize a certain chapter and also talk about the vocabulary that they found interesting in that chapter. We chose a detective novel first, and now we're reading a young adult fantasy novel. It's a great way to learn from each other, to learn together, to keep motivated, and to keep a social aspect in the language learning journey. I also cook in German. I love cooking, I love baking, and I love eating. So incorporating language learning into a daily routine such as cooking is a really useful way to, again, just get comfortable with the language, improve fluency, develop vocabulary, to have fun and eat delicious food along the way. There's often a cooking or kitchen module in the language learning process, but I think it's nice to incorporate it in my own daily routine and in a discovery of new dishes. Another really fun thing I did was that I chose a book I loved, i.e. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and I bought a translation of that book. It meant that I knew the story arc already. I love the character, I loved the adventures and the discoveries and the challenges and everything, but I'm just reading it in German. So the book offers itself to me under a new guise, and I also get to read something that I know I already love, but learn vocabulary and analyze the grammar and just enjoy the storytelling, enjoy the narrative and the expressions in a new language. So getting something that I'm familiar with and re-exploring it in the language I'm learning is really satisfying because there's that element of familiarity, which means that it's not as difficult or alienating or scary. You're already on familiar ground, so you're basically just adding the element of the language to kind of develop fluency. I'm very happy I did it with The Name of the Wind, and it's been a really fun process, and it took me about 8 months to read it, and when I finished it, it just felt like such a huge achievement, and it really kind of accompanied me in my language learning process. Finally, there's a lot of material online that I've accessed through Netflix or a movie or other streaming devices where I'm watching original German language movies or series, and that's been a really fun way to also just encounter a new storyline and continue pouring input into my brain and into my language receptors so that I am able to also access some content which I would not be able to access if I didn't speak German. It's really satisfying being able to understand more and more as you go along and feel the ease with which your understanding progress. And that's why it's so satisfying doing all those things, is that it feels like a real personal achievement, it feels like a real personal challenge, it feels really fun, and you're also just like immersing yourself in this language, immersing yourself in this culture, and having fun along the way. So those are really the tools I've used to become more fluent, become more comfortable, to demystify the language, and to have fun along the way.